Greetings. It's your friendly neighborhood PhD, Dr. Judd Burton, here with another episode of the Beyond Report, and I'm happy to relate to you that broke the 500 subscriber mark this week. All right, not a huge milestone, but a milestone nonetheless. And I thank everybody for your support. And I've always looked at this as an us venture rather than a you and me venture, if that makes any sense. Um, but again, thank you, and I give God the glory for that. And we'll see where we can take this thing. As always, if you like the content, click a like, subscribe, and share. And a few bits of news this week, some interesting stuff going on. Um, there's some sales in the work, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. But I kind of wanted to get um, on to more of the news, news, Burton Beyond news, and other news today. Some stuff that I've found interesting, I should say. Um, now, of course, one of the big pieces of news this week was the anniversary of the Pearl Harbor bombing, December the 7th, 1941, as FDR so eloquently put it, the day that will live in infamy. Um, the event that actually actively brought the United States into World War II. Um, and of course, this is a time to remember people that served in the armed forces and fell and so bravely defended our ideals during that particular battle and the larger conflict of World War II. But I would invite you to look into um, the history and details of this event. It's a very seminal point, not only in United States history, but also in world history. In other news, I ran across a very interesting piece of biblical teaching from my buddy, Dr. Mike Heiser, and it was on Azazel. And I'll post a link to this teaching in the description. And uh, what's really interesting about it is the discussion of the atonement sacrifice. And for those of you who are familiar with the Levitical passage, you know about the goat that is sacrificed to Yahweh, and then there's one that's actually let loose into the wilderness as kind of a symbolic act of what happened to Azazel. It's literally says in that passage, a goat for Azazel. Not that the goat is sacrificed to Azazel. The only sacrifice there is the one that is given to Yahweh. But it's rather interesting. He goes into the details about, and I won't spoil it all for you. You can look at it yourself. It's very good. I know, a big surprise, Mike Heiser. But what's interesting about it is that it talks about this um, the whole purpose behind it being the creation of sacred space and how other God is from creation, His creation, mankind. And accentuates that Azazel was this, of course, fallen angel, but God of the wilderness. And for those of you who follow my work, you know my interest not only in the history of Azazel, but my theories, in fact, the theses that I have put forward about Azazel and Pan being the same identity. I think that that's historically, culturally demonstrable. Then I did that to an extent in my dissertation, but have done it in other books such as Interview with the Giant and Paneas, which you can certainly check out. Um, but this association with Azazel in the wilderness is very interesting because it's just one more layer of connectivity to uh, his later identity as Pan, because of course Pan was a shepherd god, a goat god associated with the wilderness and grottos and springs and woods and things like that, wild places. So there's, the more you unravel this, the more you see the connective tissue. So uh, again, I'll put the link in the description to that. And Mike takes us all to school. He's been very gracious to me over the years and has had me on French Pop 321 on a number of occasions, and we always have a really good discussion back and forth about some very strange and bizarre topics and their biblical relevance. Um, so, another interesting event, cosmic event, in fact, is near approaching, um, and we're sort of in, just astronomically speaking, we're sort of in it right now. But of course, I'm talking about a great conjunction. And no, this is not an allusion to Aughra and the Dark Crystal, but this is an actual celestial event. This particular conjunction is of Jupiter and Saturn, and scholars and astronomers are saying this particular kind of conjunction only happens every several hundred years, between 800 and 1200 or something like that. And it's a uh, perhaps an event similar to the Bethlehem star in the Nativity story that the Magi would have been looking for. Of course, they were astronomers who would have known the movements of the heavens. And historically, these conjunctions that is, conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn, have heralded uh, significant change, paradigmatic change, politically, socially, culturally. Um, Now, uh, I think the zenith of this conjunction, if I'm not mistaken, is the winter solstice, December the 21st. Um, and again, for those of you who follow my work, you know my his historical interest in Pan and his identity. And what's interesting about this conjunction is that it's Jupiter and Saturn in conjunction entering into the house of Capricorn. And Capricorn, of course, is basically associated with Pan, the Agapan, as it were, the sea goat. Now, um, I do not subscribe to astrology, but what is interesting about this is that the scriptures repeatedly talk about the heavens, um, bearing out God's glory, God's plan. And in that way, you could sort of look at it as a kind of cosmic clock. And I think this is just another uh, example of God revealing things to people in creation. Um, but it should be interesting. As a historian, as an anthropologist, I'm very interested at what sort of, you know, nexus we're approaching, because it does seem like there are these converging elements, culturally, politically, supernaturally, that are taking place right before our very eyes. And again, not subscribing to astrology, but uh, you know, God's creation, sort of heralding these things, is not outside the realm of possibility. Um, I'm also about to enter into an interesting discussion group. I've been invited by a friend and peer of mine, Dr. Luke Lafitte, um, and it will be a study of the history of Christian mysticism. And as an early church historian, this is going to be some interesting ground, and looking forward to contributing and getting good back and forth discussion about that. And if you're interested, I'll keep you guys apprised of that. Thanks, Luke, again for inviting me to participate in this discussion. Now, in terms of sales, of course, the Christmas book, 12 Days of Christmas Bible Studies, is still available, and it's a quick download. You're probably already wondering what you might want to read for the Christmas season or holiday season. Well, here are 12 Bible studies, historical meditations on elements of the Nativity story. Um, so again, it's quick downloads, ebook. You can read it on your tablet, whatever e-reader you might have. Um, and I've got some other deals. Um, some book bundles that I'll put a link to in the description. And keep a lookout over the next couple of days for some big discounts on not only classes through the Institute of Biblical Anthropology, but also the entire apprenticeship program, which is, of course, 12 different classes. 12 classes make up the entire module. So, and I would invite you to study with me. I have a number of students who are doing so right now, and it's just fantastic the work that these students are putting out, and I'm having a good time. It's gratifying to me as a teacher. I feel like the students are gaining a lot from it. So I cordially invite you to study with me at the Institute of Biblical Anthropology. Of course, those links will be in the description as well. Well, that's about all I've got for right now. I will have a new episode of Quick Classics within the next day or so, and some new Antiquity X and hopefully Sunday School X material in the very, very near future. Until then, Godspeed, and we'll see you later.